All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at perfect competition in the short run. And if you recall that there are 4 situations that a firm can face in the short run. They can profit, they can break even, they can operate at a loss, or they can be in a position where they have to shut down operations. And we're going to talk about those, and we'll review some of the main ideas of those 4 things as we go through these 4 circumstances. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go kind of clockwise here. We're going to start here and move this way, and this way, and we're going to identify each one of these 4 situations as one of those 4 circumstances. Okay, so let's start up here. We have dollars per unit, and we have quantity down here. Now, here's our demand curve, and we know that this firm is going to choose its profit maximizing quantity wherever marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, and they intersect right here at this point. So if we come vertically down here, we can see that that is going to be the profit maximizing quantity. Put PF there, okay? Also, we can determine the total revenue of the firm because this is also the price in addition to the marginal revenue. We can multiply the quantity times the price, and this entire rectangle here is going to be the total revenue of the firm, okay? Now, as we go along the profit maximizing quantity, we run into a couple different curves. We run into the average total cost curve. So I'm going to get blue here, and that the quantity intersects average total cost there. So we're going to come over here, and that'll be our average total cost, okay? And then, as you know, we can multiply average total cost by quantity, and that would give us, this is our total cost rectangle here, okay? And then we have average variable cost right here, so we're gonna put a little dashed line over to here, and that gives us our average variable cost for the firm at the profit maximizing quantity. And if we multiply the average variable cost by the quantity, this rectangle here represents the variable cost for the firm. And then the difference between variable cost and total cost is this rectangle in here, and that represents the fixed costs for the firm. But the thing that we are most interested in is the fact that in this circumstance, price is greater than average total cost. You see that right here. Price is higher than average total cost. And of course, average total cost is higher than average variable cost. And therefore, this firm is profiting. Okay? And the rectangle for the profit is this rectangle between the price and the average total cost. And so that region right in there, we'll do it in green for money, this is the profit of the firm. Profit of the firm is that rectangle right in there. Okay? All right. So now let's go over here. And I want to remind you of something. We have something interesting going on. And we have 3 curves all intersecting right there at that point right there. And that also happens to be the place where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, right? Oh, excuse me. So that's supposed to be MC. I messed that up. Sorry, folks. I know you're like screaming at the video saying, Mr. Ryan, Professor Ryan, you put a marginal revenue instead of a marginal cost. You're sure you are right about that. Sorry about that. All right, so these are all, the red is marginal cost curves, not marginal revenue. Okay, so here we have the marginal cost curve intersecting the marginal revenue curve, and that means that the profit maximizing quantity is at that point right there. Well, something interesting is happening there. We're going to talk about that in just a second, and it has something to do with the average total cost curve being tangent to the demand curve. We talked about that in one of our lessons, and if you recall, when average total cost is tangent to the demand curve, that firm is breaking even, right? They're earning 0 economic profit. Well, we can show that that's definitely happening here because let's take our profit maximizing quantity here. So we'll put QPF, and once again, this is the quantity axis, this is the dollars per unit axis. And as we go up the profit maximizing quantity, here is average variable cost. So we're going to come over here and we're going to put an AVC, okay? Also, we have the price line there. But look what's interesting. If we're going to identify the average total cost, as we go up the profit maximizing quantity, the average total cost is at the exact same height as the demand curve. And therefore, price is equal to, so we're going to say here, price is equal to average total cost. They are the same line. This is the price line. It is also the average total cost line. And so in this particular case, price is equal to average total cost. So if we multiply each one of them by quantity, price times quantity would give us total revenue. And so our total revenue, and our average total cost times quantity is our total cost. So we have a situation here where total revenue is equal to total cost. Well, that's break even. We've learned that a couple times. Therefore, this one is the break even circumstance. So here we're going to put break even. Okay? So this one is profiting. This circumstance is profiting. This one right here is breaking even. Okay? And that's because average total cost is equal to price. This is profiting because price is greater than average total cost. All right, well then let's go down here and see what's happening in this circumstance. On this, we have the vertical axis, we have dollars per unit. On the horizontal axis, we have quantity. Okay? And so we're going to look for the place where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue, which happens right here. There's our profit maximizing quantity. Although in this case, it doesn't look like we have a profit maximizing situation at all. But I'm going to put, excuse me. Oh, this isn't supposed to be an F, that's supposed to be an M. Sorry, folks. Keep messing up. This is my, well, there we go. Profit maximizing. So we have the profit maximizing quantity here, but I can already see that this, this firm is not profiting. In fact, if I extend this quantity, vertical quantity line so it goes up to the average total cost curve there, we can see we've got our price, and at our average total cost will come over here, and we can see right away that average total cost, if I put an ATC here, we can see that average total cost is larger than price. We go to average variable cost, that's right here. Come over here. That is our average variable cost, AVC. That's not an E, that's a C. Sorry about that. Okay? And what you can see here is in this circumstance, average total cost is greater than price, and price is greater than average variable cost. So we're going to say ATC is greater than price, which is greater than average variable cost. So, this is, do you remember, this is a situation where we are losing. We're losing money, and that's this rectangle right here represents loss. So I'm going to put in red in here, I'm going to get rid of a little bit of this curve right here, and I'm going to put loss. Because average total cost times quantity gives us this large rectangle is total cost, and then price times quantity gives us total revenue. Total revenue is less than total cost. Therefore, when we do total revenue minus total cost, we'll get a negative number and we will be experiencing a loss. Okay? So, should this firm shut down? No, they shouldn't. Because remember, this distance, this rectangle between average variable cost and average total cost, that represents, right, the average fixed cost, or at least the vertical distance does. When we multiply average fixed cost times quantity, we get the fixed costs of the firm. And you can see that the revenues of the firm are recovering some of the fixed costs. So I'm going to put that in here. Let's see how I can write that. Right here we are recovered fixed costs. Now, we are losing some on our fixed costs here. Okay, so here's our variable costs. Here's our fixed costs. If we choose to shut down, we're not going to produce anything, and we will have to pay the entire rectangle of fixed costs. And remember, we said that if the firm, let's say that in one case, let's say that if we recover some of the fixed costs, let's say that our loss is 10,000, but our fixed costs are 18,000. If we shut down, we will have to pay out $18,000 in fixed costs. If we operate, we will be losing 10,000. So if you had to choose between losing 10,000 and losing 18,000, which one would you rather lose? You would rather lose 10,000 instead of 18,000. So here, this firm is at least recovering $8,000 in fixed costs. So it is good for them to keep doing business because they're recovering some of their fixed costs. Okay? So here, we are operating at a loss, but we're going to keep on operating. So we're going to say operate at a loss. This firm is going to choose to operate at a loss because at least they're recovering some of their fixed costs. All right, but now let's look over here at this situation. This is terrible. This firm is in really bad shape. Here's our marginal revenue curve. Here's our marginal cost curve. And here is our what could be described as the profit maximizing quantity, but this is not good. They're not going to produce anything. So quantity times price, this is our total revenue in this rectangle right here, okay? But if we follow the profit maximizing quantity vertically here, let's see if I can make it as vertical as I can. There we go. You can see that here's average variable costs. Oh, I put a T there. That's supposed to be a V. Messed up all kinds of stuff on this. Average variable cost right there. Okay, A, B, C. Okay. And then our average total cost is all the way up here. Average total cost. Okay. And so now we have a situation where average total cost, of course, is greater than average variable cost, but average variable cost is also greater than price. And so, here's our total revenue in this rectangle. Our variable cost is this larger rectangle. So we're not even covering all of our variable costs. And then our fixed costs are up here. So let's say that our fixed costs are 18,000. So fixed costs are 18,000. All right. Let's say that our revenues, okay, are, I don't know, revenues are 20,000, okay? But variable cost looks like it's about maybe 30,000, okay? So 30,000 for variable plus 18,000 for fixed cost, that's 48,000. So total cost is 48,000, but revenue looks like it's only 20,000. So if we do 48,000 minus 20,000, that means that our loss is 28,000. And if you had to choose between losing 28,000 or losing 18,000, which one would you choose? You would say, I'd rather lose 18,000. And so therefore, if this firm operates, if they continue doing business and produce that quantity, they will lose $28,000. So this firm really should shut down. This firm is going to have to shut down. And that's the best way for them to stop losing, or to lose the least amount of money, okay? And so I just wanted you to be able to see the different circumstances. Even though we've already done this with a downward sloping demand curve, I wanted to do the four situations with a horizontal demand curve so that you can see for perfect competition that these are the four, they can face the same four situations. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to look at, there are two different ways. How can a firm go from shut down to operating at a loss? How can they go from operating at a loss to breaking even? How can they go from breaking even to profiting? Or the other way around. How do they go from profiting to breaking even to operating at a loss to shutting down? All right, so here's what we want to see is we want to know how a perfect competitor can move from one circumstance, one of the four circumstances, into another circumstance, okay? And basically what will happen is this, is they can move from shutdown. There's only one thing they can move to. From shutdown, they can go to operating at a loss. But from operating at a loss, they can either move to break even or they can move down to shutdown. But they're not going to go directly from shutdown up to profiting. I mean, if they did, you just would see this picture and then this picture, and you would know that in between they went from here to here to here and then here. Now, this is in the short run, okay? This is in the short run. In the long run, they can make huge changes to their cost structure, and they can even go from being a perfect competitor to being a monopolistic competitor instead. That's in the long run. So we're here in the short run. In the short run, they can't exit the market, remember? They can't enter the market. And I know what you're thinking is, well, there are barriers, there are zero barriers to entry and exit. Yes, I understand that, but remember, in the short run, the firm still has fixed costs, okay? And so if they were in the shutdown situation, if they could leave the market, they would leave the market. But shutdown means that they're stuck in the market in the short run until they get to the long run. So in the short run, a perfect competitor can move from shutdown to operating at a loss, from operating at a loss to break even, and from break even to profiting, or they can move the other direction, okay? And what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you that there's only two things that can really change. We can either have a change in the price or we can have a change in the marginal cost, okay? And there's two things that the price can do. The price can either go up or down, okay? And remember, I think I showed you how the price goes up and down. Let me just do a quick aside here. I'm going to draw a little tiny market graph here with a supply and demand curve, okay? So there's a supply curve. Don't put this on this picture. Put it somewhere else in your notes if you're going to draw it at all. I'm just reminding you of something. That the supply and demand in the industry, for all of the products, determines the price, right? For all the price takers, right? Well, if the supply curve shifts to the right, if we have a rightward shift of the supply curve, we now have a new price. The price is now going down. The demand curve could also shift and bring the price up or down. So as there are changes in the overall product market with suppliers and demanders, the price can fluctuate. So the price is determined by the overall market. But the costs, those are determined by other things, which we just discussed. They're affected by factor prices and also factor productivity. So those affect production costs. Production costs affect marginal costs, and then marginal costs will either shift up or down, affecting the profit maximizing quantity, and it'll also change total cost, average total cost and average variable cost. Okay? So the reason I'm reviewing all of this is so that we can now understand. If the price increases, that means that this purple line will go up. If the price decreases, that means this purple line will go down. If marginal cost decreases, that means the red, blue, and orange lines will all go down. If marginal cost increases, that means that the red, blue, and orange lines will all go up. And so here's what I'm saying is and let me get one thing out of the way. If the price and marginal cost both go the same direction, either up or down, nothing is going to change. If the price goes up, marginal cost goes up, average total cost goes up, and average variable cost goes up, we're still going to be in the same situation. And as you can see, this situation currently where we're starting here is break even, okay? If both of them, if marginal cost and price go down, then all of the curves are going to go down and we're not going to have any change. But what I need you to understand is what happens if marginal cost goes up and price doesn't change. Or if price goes down and marginal cost doesn't change, what's going to happen is the costs are going to go this way and the price is going to go this way. And when the costs go this way and the price goes this way, what's going to happen is this. If the price goes down and marginal cost goes up, ultimately the net effect is a decrease in profit. So we're going to put down arrow profit. So you know, the total revenue minus total cost will become a smaller number, okay? So total revenue minus total cost will become smaller, which is either smaller profit or more loss. But when the price goes up and the costs go down, that means total cost is a smaller number, total revenue is a larger number, and we will have an increase in profit. Now, as profit increases, the firm will go from this direction to this direction. So if the firm is breaking even, but then their profit increase, currently in break even they have a profit of 0, right? Okay, so profit equals 0, right? In profiting, profit is greater than 0. And when they're operating at a loss, profit is less than 0. Also over here, profit is less than 0, but it's more less than 0 than this one is, okay? And so here, when profit increases, it goes from being less than 0 to a little closer to 0 to being 0 and then to being greater than 0. So when price increases or marginal cost decreases, the firm will move from over here to over here. It will move from here to here to here to here. So when price goes up or marginal cost goes down, what will happen is a firm that is shutting down will go to operating at a loss. Okay? Starts as a shutdown, then it becomes operating at a loss when the price increases or when marginal cost decreases. If it starts as operating at a loss, it'll move to break even. And if it starts as break even, it'll go to profiting. And if it starts out as profiting, I'm going to put this, I'm going to say no change. It'll just keep profiting. Okay? If the firm is already profiting and the price goes up or marginal cost goes down, the firm will just keep profiting. Okay? All right, but what happens if marginal cost goes up or price goes down? Okay, well that means profit is going to be going down. So that means originally here, profit is greater than 0. Under break even, profit equals 0. Under operating at a loss, profit is less than 0, and profit is also less than 0 under the shutdown decision. Okay? All right? But now profit is going to become less. This number is going to become smaller. So if it was positive, greater than 0, when it gets smaller, it's going to become 0. If it's 0 and it goes down, it'll become less than 0. And if it's less than 0 in a small way, it's going to become less than 0 in a big way. And therefore, if price decreases or marginal cost increases, these firms are going to move this direction. They're going to move that direction on the in terms of what their situation is. So if they start out as profiting, then they're going to go to breaking even. They're going to move to break even. If they start out as breaking even, they're going to move to operating at a loss. If they're operating at a loss and price goes down or marginal cost goes up, then they're going to go to a place where they need to shut down. And if they are already under the shutdown decision, and if price goes down or marginal cost goes up, it doesn't matter. There's not going to be any change. They're already shutting down. They can't get hurt anymore because they're already just trying to cover their fixed costs. So we're going to say no change. Okay? And that is everything that you need to know about perfect competition in the short run. Now we're going to move on to perfect competition in the long run.